You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.
We're going to finish the I Am series that we've been in for the last several weeks. And this morning, we're going to finish with the last two statements that Jesus makes about himself. In the scriptures and in the Gospel of John, there are 7 times where Jesus makes reference to himself. And he uses these descriptions of himself that at the time were confusing or maybe controversial. And the reality is that they actually still are confusing and controversial today. And the last thing that Jesus says, the last 2 statements he makes about himself is the statement that we've heard a lot if you've been around the church. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. And then the last statement he says after that is, I am the true vine. Now, both of these statements take place in his conversation with the disciples as he's in the upper room before he's on his way to the cross. It's the last week that he's alive, and he's with them, and he's in conversation with his disciples, trying to help them to understand exactly why Jesus came and why he was leaving. And so before we dive into all of that, something got me thinking this morning at 3 a.m. Babe, I don't even know if you woke up, but at 3 a.m. this morning, I heard the backup buzzer of, like a backup alarm of a tow truck. I didn't know what it was. And I actually thought I was at work, and it was the fire truck backing up. And I looked out my window, and there was a tow truck that was backing up to my neighbor across the street's car. And I noticed that there was a police car sitting behind her car. And our neighbor's like this amazing woman, retired Navy pilot, like the sweetest thing on earth. And I was like, why in the world at 3 a.m. is there a tow truck, like, taking her car away, and there's a police car here, and all I could see was her car, the police car, and the tow truck, and immediately I start filling in the gaps, right? I start creating this crazy narrative and story, like, because there's no reason why you would tow a car at 3 a.m, unless, like, the crazy things I was like, maybe she's a serial killer, and they, like, I'm like, what in the world? Like, I thought I knew you, like, I watered your trees while you were on vacation. Like, what is going on? Like, you have a key to our house. Like, it was like I'm just filling in the craziest story in my head, and all I could see is that. And all of a sudden, I see a shadow shift, and I kind of look down and this way, and I realize that the tow truck is actually not taking her car away. There's a car that is on our side of the street that has crashed into our wall in the front of our house. And I'm like, oh, that's a totally different story. And so I walk downstairs, and I need to, like, repent and tell Jen I'm sorry for the stuff I thought about her. But I walk outside, and I talk to the police officer. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, hey, somebody hit this car. It ran into your house. I'm like, all right, cool. Do you need anything from me? He's like, nope, unless you know whose car it is. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go back upstairs and try to go to bed. And I'm like, what a weird thing to happen at 3 a.m. And as I was thinking about that this morning, I thought that oftentimes this is what we do with the scriptures. And this is perhaps one of the most dangerous things we can do with the scriptures is we can see verses and we could see statements and we could see things with blinders on. And one of the most dangerous things we can do is look at one sentence or one line and not take it into the account of the context that it was being written in, and then into the context of the whole narrative of the scriptures, and then into the context of all of humanity and creation and the universe. And if we fail to do that, if we fail to get a bigger glimpse, a bigger view of what's going on, we run the risk of completely missing what's happening in the scriptures. And this statement that Jesus makes about himself in John 14:6, He's talking to the disciples. He's just told them that he will be leaving. He's telling them that he's going to go to the cross. And they don't understand it, but he says, I'm going to somewhere better. I'm going to my Father's house, and there's many rooms there, and it's where that horrible song in the 90s came from. If you guys know, like, okay, it's a good song, Taylor. Your era, bro. I love it. Who is that, the Newsboys? Audio Adrenaline, come on. My Father's house, big, big house. So that song was made off of this passage. And Jesus said, I'm going to this place. And they say, Jesus, we don't know where you're going, and we don't know how to get there. And so Jesus is talking to them and telling them, like, there's this place I'm going, and you can come here too. But they don't know what he's saying. So he says, let me help you understand what I'm saying. And his response, his answer is, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Now, this is a very, very crucial scripture that we have built our faith on, that we have built our understanding of salvation on, that we have built all sorts of our theology around. But it is also perhaps one of the most controversial scriptures in the entirety of the scriptures, because it seems so exclusive, doesn't it? I think so many times when it comes to our faith, when it comes to our Christian faith, people love some things about Jesus, and they love some things about God. But especially in our day and age, we hate the exclusivity of this claim, that there could be one way to God, that there could be one way to Jesus. And I think the reason why we think this is so ridiculous and even wrestle with it, even if you believe it, is because quite simply, we just love options, don't we? We love options. Like so many of you, not me, so many of you have like multiple pairs of shoes in your closet, right? Because like they're for special things, like the right fit for the right thing, the right look for the right thing. They feel a certain way. These are my running shoes. These are my workout shoes that I only wear when I'm not working out because they look cool. These are my basketball shoes that I wear to play tennis, and my tennis shoes that I wear to play basketball. And we have all of these different options. And if that doesn't communicate this, then I think we can understand it when it comes to eating at restaurants, right? Because we love options. That's why there's menus, right? No one goes to a restaurant and says, I'll take some food. I'm just hungry. I need some food. Like, just bring out whatever you'd like. Like, that doesn't happen. That's why there's menus, because we love options. And so many menus are so confusing. They give us so many options, and I would still bet that almost none of you can order something directly off the menu without changing it, right? Like, I'll take the hamburger without the bun, wrap it in lettuce, minus the burger, add some pickles, right, and light mustard. And the server's like, so you want some pickles wrapped in lettuce? You're like, I told you. I want the burger minus the bun, wrapped in lettuce, take the burger off, add some pickles, light mustard. And all of a sudden, they'll bring you out your pickles wrapped in lettuce, and you'll still send it back. Because, it had light mustard, and what you meant by light mustard was diet mustard, not light-colored mustard, or just a little bit of mustard. It's crazy, like, that we can get to this place. And I know you're all thinking of, like, someone like that in your life, but it's not you. But, like, if that's you, you would be better off with just a raw list of ingredients on a menu. And you could just build your own meal. You could just design your own thing. And they could cook it for you the way you want it, and they'd bring it out, and it would be just right for you. And as much as we love options, and as picky as we are with our food and with our shoes, we do the same thing with our faith. We love to pick and choose to take the things that feel just right, the things that resonate with us, and then we just discard the difficult things that we don't quite understand. And we'll just kind of skirt around the things that maybe don't leave us feeling so comfortable, or that might challenge our thinking. And this is one of those things when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And we can look at it, and we could think that Jesus is giving an ultimatum. We could think that Jesus is saying, choose me or choose death. Choose me or go to hell. Choose me or live a miserable life. Choose me or be unsatisfied. We think that Jesus is giving us an ultimatum. But in reality, when you pull yourselves out and you see it from a bigger perspective, you know that Jesus is not giving us an ultimatum. He's giving us a declaration. He is not doing anything to try to exclude us. He's doing everything to point to the great length that God went to include us. See, the declaration that Jesus is making is nobody else is coming. There's no one else that's coming. And as long as we would love, as much as we would love to believe that like all roads connect, all paths go to God, all things can get us there, the reality is there is no other deity, there is no other religion, there is no other faith that says that God has come for you. All religion boils down to either legalism or fatalism. Either this concept that you must do something to earn God's love and favor, or fatalism that there's actually nothing you can do or can't do to earn it. God will just pick on his own. And when I say every religion, I'm including Christianity. Even the depths of some of our faith traditions and theologies can move us into this kind of thinking. And what Jesus is declaring is that there is nothing else in this world that is coming for you, but I have come. Therefore, I am the way. He is not trying to exclude you. He's trying to include you. He isn't telling us that if we don't come to him that we're going to experience death. What Jesus is saying is, I am life. And unless you choose life, death is what will be is experienced. And then he goes on later on in his conversation with the disciples, and he turns the corner in the conversation. And he's already told them, by the way, the way to God, the way to the Father, the way that you have been trying to earn your favor with God, I am the path. I am it. And then later on, he moves into the statement that I am the vine. And I think this is something that begins to resonate with all of us, because at the basic human level, one thing that we all share in common is this desire to grow. We desire to grow and to progress and to develop because, well, to be alive means that we make progress and momentum, that we are moving forward, that we are not stagnant. So each and every one of us has this desire to develop, to become, to grow and to mature. But as much as we are compelled and convicted to grow, we know that the process can be a bit painful. And the reality of that pain and the reality of that discomfort will oftentimes keep us choosing comfort. It will keep us choosing to maintain instead of multiply. Our desire to grow, it's matched by our longing for comfort. And what Jesus is helping us see in this next passage that we're going to step into is that we must choose one or the other. That comfort and growth cannot coexist. And I love that Galatians 5:22, the scriptures don't just tell us to grow. They actually show us what it will look like to grow. And in 5:22 of Galatians, it says the fruit of the Spirit, the proof, the evidence that you have grown, that you are being matured, that you are developing are these things. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I think so many times what we confuse is that we confuse these things as goals to aim for instead of results of what happens. And I think there's a huge difference between goals and results. I think if you've ever attempted to take on one of these traits, ever attempted to grow in one of these things on your own, you have been left wanting. These are not goals, these are results of what happens in us. And Jesus begins to help us make sense of how to actually grow. He's making this claim, this statement that living things grow and dead things wither. And we have the ability to choose which path that we will go on. And so Jesus explains it by saying this statement of himself, I am the true vine in John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Okay, that's exactly why we choose comfort. You're like, wait a minute, I get it. Like if something's not good, if something's dead, if something's broken, get rid of it. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. right? Like, I understand, like, the dead thing, cut it off, but the good thing, like, why take the shears to that? What? That hurts. It's painful. If something's dead and you cut it, the nerves are gone. But if it's alive and it's okay, like, why do we have to go through the pain of that? And I think that very thing, the understanding of pruning, is a thing that can keep us choosing comfort. And this is the point that Jesus is trying to make. He says he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, even the good ones, he prunes those so that it will be even more fruitful. And what he's saying, in fact, this is one of our core values as a church, is that we are unfinished. It brings about this level of humility that we'll never get to this place in this life where we have arrived, where we've made it, where we just got it. And I know so many times we wish that we could just get there. In fact, that's what we're aiming for. Even what Corey spoke about. Like, when am I done being generous? When am I done being kind? Like, your kind bucket ever get too full? Like, you just want to be mean today? Like I just need a moment to be me. And Jesus is helping us understand that, man, even those good things in your life, we're going to prune. Just yesterday, we had a parent workshop, and there was about 30, 35 of us parents in the room, like literally saying, help, like, we need some help. And we had literally like a professional psychologist, like, walking with us through this crazy journey of parenting. And it was a pruning moment for us parents. Like, everyone in the room, like, we love being parents. We feel grateful to be parents. There's some fruit. I mean, we're obviously fruitful, like we're multiplying this world. Yet, like there's moments that we need to step into to be pruned. And I don't know about those of you that were there, but I left feeling raw, like feeling like, man, I just got cut up a bit. Especially when, like, 20 minutes later, I'm breaking all the rules and discarding all the tools that I just learned in that session. And there are these moments in our lives where even when you're thriving, even when you're doing well, that God is still going to cut and to prune. And sometimes that even hurts more than when the dead things are cut out of our lives. And then he says, you're already clean because of the word that I've spoken to you. I think this is one of the most beautiful expressions that Jesus makes that helps us understand the very essence of who he is. See, religion will say that your journey begins with a do. You must do this, or you must do that, or you must don't do this, or don't do that. But with Jesus, it begins with a done. He says, you're already clean. Because the words I've spoken to you, what he's saying is, it is finished. You are made complete in me because of the work I am about to step into, not what you are to do. In verse 4, he says, remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. And what Jesus is helping his disciples and us understand in this part of the conversation, especially the part where he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. What he's saying is that all of these things in your life that you were going to try to fix on your own might or through your own effort or through your own endurance, it will not take shape. If you are disconnected from the source of life, nothing you do will equate to living. And as long as you go it alone, as long as you try to do it on your own might, it will never come into fruition. But if we remain in the vine, if we stay as branches and Jesus as the vine, he says that God, who is the gardener, will do the right cutting and pruning so that we can have fruitful lives. That the result of our lives will be fruitful. The evidence of our life will be growth. But have you ever been guilty of that? Like just try to do it alone. Like every year, New Year's resolutions. They come and go. Like, I'm going to be more kind this year. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to yell at my kids. I'm not going to be mean to my wife. I'm not going to do this or that. And we can set these goals for ourselves. We can even identify it. And I know for me, plenty of times, as I've reflected on my life and I've thought about where I want to get, I'll even write it down. Goals for 2017. Goals for this next year of my life. Goals for this next season of our church. Goals for these things. And I think if I could just put my head down and work hard and grin and bear it, that there will be some fruit. But Jesus is saying, as long as you work on your own might, you will never see the fruit. As the Father has loved me, in verse 9, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that your joy may be complete in you. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. I love that the reason God longs for us to grow, the reason that God longs for us to develop and mature is not for him. It's not just so that he can be satisfied with us. He says, I want my joy to be in you and your joy to be made complete. Like the very result, the payoff of your growth, of your remaining in me, is that you will experience this thing in your soul at a gut level. And it's this thing called joy. And this thing called joy, it will surpass all circumstances. When things aren't going your way, when things aren't adding up, when things are not going the way you wish they were going, there's still this thing inside of you. And you could say, God, I have this joy that surpasses all understanding. The very reason God longs for us to grow is to experience his joy. And I think Jesus has made it so clear that we are incapable of getting there on our own. He's showing us, again, remain in me, remain in me, remain in me. You can't do it alone. Apart from me, you can do nothing. But while it's true that we are incapable of growing and changing ourselves, Jesus does declare in this passage that we are capable of doing one thing. And he says this in verse 10. He says, if you keep my commands, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. He's saying, apart from me, you can do nothing. You cannot change yourself. You cannot get better on your own. You cannot refine this or define this. You cannot get better in this arena. You can't go it alone. But the thing that you can do is you could keep my commands. That sounds easy, doesn't it? Like, that's not daunting at all. Like, trying to be nice, it seems a lot easier than keeping God's commands. I mean, perhaps the most challenging part of keeping God's commands is knowing what they are. I know even me reading this I feel like I need to start at the beginning and like figure out what all of these different commands are. Like what are all of the things that God would command us to do? Like, God, that seems a little challenging. Do you got some cliff notes for that? Do you have, like, can I Google that? How do I understand? I feel like I need to be a theologian and get my MDiv or get all of these things to understand the commands of God. It sounds so grandiose. Until Jesus boils it down in verse 12. My command. If you don't notice, there's no S at the end of that. It is not plural. There are not many. He says, my command is this. Love each other as I have loved you. My command is this. Love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. And Jesus is helping us see that if we love each other, that he'll take care of the rest. If we would love each other, he'll take care of the rest. You want to grow in your life. You want to make progress in your life. You want some momentum. You want to be able to see some things change and shift. If you want to be transformed, if the broken things in your life that you know need to be fixed are getting at you, what Jesus is saying, you want those things to be taken care of, do this one thing. Love each other. Love each other. And I think the most difficult thing about this command, the most difficult, most disorienting thing about this command for us to love each other is that we misunderstand what love is. We think that love is about the way we should feel towards someone. We confuse love and emotion. We think that loving someone is feeling good towards someone, but love is not an emotion. Love is an action. Love is a choice. We could actually love someone. We could serve someone. We could give our life to someone, away to someone, even if we don't like them or feel like it. And what Jesus is saying, if you love one another, I'll take care of the rest. He doesn't tell us to go out and feel a certain way about someone. I think so many times that limits us. I don't really feel great towards that person or these people. I really don't feel great towards that situation or that thing. And we think that that gives us an excuse to not live out this command to love, to lay our lives down for each other. And this is what we're committed to as followers of Jesus. The scriptures say that the evidence of that choice, the evidence of that, the proof of that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. And I think what Jesus is trying to help us to understand is that all of these things are the result of, they're the fruit of our obedience to his command to love one another. It's counterintuitive. You would think like if you want to be more kind, you just practice. You want to be more generous, you just practice. You want to have self-control, you just try harder. But it makes me think about like the way that we're able to lower our resting heart rate. I remember at work, we go through this wellness program every year, and they check everything about us. It's very uncomfortable. And at the end of it, they'll be like, dude, you're doing great, or dude, you really need to work on some stuff. And one year I went in there, and my resting heart rate was like through the roof. And they were like, this doesn't add up. Like, you don't look like you should have a high resting heart rate and all of that. And I thought, well, man, I got to get this thing down. And I knew better, but like in the moment, I'm like, that's a ticket to kick it. You know what I mean? Like, if your heart rate is like fast, like you should chill some more, you know? Like that would make sense to me. Like your resting heart rate's too fast, so you need to like chill, relax. And I remember the doc, he's like, no, dude, you gotta like run. You gotta like exercise. You gotta work out that muscle, and the more you work that muscle, the more it will lower your resting heart rate. Now, that's backwards, man. He's like, dude, you should know this. And I'm like, I know this, but I don't like it, so I'm going to try it the other way. And he's like, go ahead. It ain't going to work. You got to like get off of your butt and run and exercise and do something with that muscle. And I think this is what love is for us. Love is that muscle that we need to exercise to get the results of the growth in our life that we want. See, you could try to focus on being more kind, and you will not be. But if you want to grow in your kindness, love someone. Kindness will come. You want to move towards love? Guess what the result of that will be? Peace. You want to learn some patience, some kindness, some goodness, get married, have some kids, be a friend, open your life up to someone else. That's how kindness will come. That's how goodness will come. That's how patience will come. You want to be more faithful? Choose someone. Love them. Be loyal to them. And faithfulness will come. Be gentle. Choose love. Self-control. Choose love. When we cultivate love, the growth will come. The fruit will come. The life that we long to live. The life that we can be proud of. The life where joy will be at the center of. It only comes when we follow the command of Jesus to love each other and to remain in Him. We cannot love until we have received love. In verse 16, he ends with this. He says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. Fruit that will last. And so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command. Love each other." If you're here this morning and you have a picture of the life that you want to live, where growth and fruit is part of it, and you don't know how to get there, I want you to hear this morning that the only hope of living a life of love is by first knowing love. And that love that brings life, His name is Jesus. And when He makes the declaration, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, no one comes to the Father except through me, what He's saying is nobody else is going to come for you. But I did. That love itself, the very essence of life, would step into human history in the form of Jesus. Take on flesh and blood and live this perfect and sinless life. And on our behalf, go to the cross and take on our sin and our shame and our suffering so that we could know life and so that we could be even capable of carrying out His command to love. And the best news of the good news is that God first chose you. When He stepped into human history, He was choosing each and every one of us, and He longs to bring His children back to Himself. And so if you hear nothing else this morning, I want you to hear that Jesus is the source of life, the very source of love. And He is the very source that if you plug into and be connected to, that you too could live. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you, Lord, that you would use such strong language to help us understand the great length that you would come for us. God, that you wouldn't just tell us that you would love us, but you would come and lay your life down for us. but not just dying for us, but God conquering death itself and raising again to new life. Declaring, Lord, that if we would choose a life in you, that we too could live forever. You got that life everlasting. We don't have to wait for that when we die, but God, we can experience that here and now. And so, God, I pray for every person in the room who's gasping for life, longing to find joy. God, that your Holy Spirit would move through this place now and do the work that only you could do.
You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.